Perth's property recovery. Let's have a look. Good morning, everyone. I'm Florian Heise, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. Got my morning stein of coffee as always, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from ABC News talking about the recovery of housing in Perth, the price recovery. Now, if you have been following the news about property, particularly in Western Australia, you know it's not doing too well. A few videos ago, a gentleman left a comment saying, check out what my mate bought and what he sold it for. Poor guy bought a property in 2016, had to sell it just recently for about a 200 grand loss. And the person who bought it, the valuation is already $15,000 less than when he bought it. So I would be skeptical of any news that we're hearing that the Perth economy is recovering. But if it's driven by blue chip properties, that may be something similar to what we are seeing over here on the eastern coast of Australia. Now, before we go through this article, I just want to draw your attention to an article I wrote on my website on says.heise.com.au. And this is fake auction clearance rates exposed. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this video. The video I did about this recently, but I want to draw your attention to this as it is adding just more fuel to my growing skepticism of everything I am reading in the media about property. You can see here we go through the auction clearance rates for September. Thanks to the team at Fresh Canvas, they data mined it for us. And you can download the Excel file and have a look. What happened is they've got all these unconfirmed results, and then they relisted for sale. But it wasn't taken into account in the auction clearance rates. A lot of people aren't responding. So check that out, guys. If you think, oh no, Florian, you're just being crazy, it's all good. Reporters, the newspapers, the real estate agents, the data sources, they wouldn't be making mistakes, or they wouldn't just be being lazy. No, Florian, it's all good. It's coming back. It's coming back. Let's have a look. Some people are calling this a bull trap. Where a market is heading down, then jumps back up, and people think it's recovered, so they're jumping in. How would you feel if you jumped in now in property and then it started heading down again when maybe other economic indicators aren't faring so well? So let's have a look. Let's go through this one. House price gains in Perth's inner and western suburbs have produced the first overall price growth for the city's residential property market in 18 months. Now, before I go any further, I was going to ask if you reckon this is core logic. Yeah, it will be based on... Yeah, well, there you go. There's the issue in question. It's the methodology that core logic uses and how they're applying, say, just, prices have gone up in this suburb here, so everywhere else is more expensive. During November, prices rose by 0.4% in the Greater Perth region, with a median value of $470,000 for houses and $335,000 for units. See, 470 isn't too bad. It's not too bad. It's still, a mortgage, would be a bit of a dent at 470. I'd rather under 4. That represents the first increase since April 2018. When prices began to deteriorate amid tightening credit conditions during the Banking Royal Commission. Okay, but here's another thing, and I will bring up a Google Earth as we load that up. Because here they're just mentioning tightening, credit conditions, the Banking Royal Commission, but there's a few other things to consider with regards to Perth. Now we'll bring up this here. This is from the Observatory of Economic Complexity. And for those of you that don't know, it's one of my favorite websites. It's not sponsored. But you can see here all the natural resources that are a big portion of Australia's export sector. Now we will jump over to Google Earth, and here I have operating mines in Australia 2014. It's the latest data I could get, but I'll just press this button here to turn it on. You can see, I'll turn it off, turn it on. You can see how many, there's a few over here, but there's a lot in Western Australia. I mean, it is a iron ore bloody, well, the whole state's pretty much just an iron ore mine. Mining has a big impact on this state. A big portion of our exports to China, a big chunk of it is coming from Western Australia. So they are going to feel that. So while they're claiming the issues with regards to, they're just talking about the Banking Royal Commission. They're not talking about mining prices, are they? Let's bring up another bit of data. We'll jump over here. We'll go to trading economics, guys. Trading economics. We'll go on commodities. This is a great website just for summaries of economic information. I'm sure if you've been following this, you're on my channel and other channels, you're a fan of this one. If this is your introduction to it, it's a lot of fun. Let's have a look. We'll go down here to iron ore. We'll look at the current price of iron ore. What is it? It's up, okay, 21.6% since the beginning of 2019. It's increased, but we can have a look. You look at that, the price there. This was a jump that was brought about by issues with regards to Brazilian supply, and it affects the Australian budget. We'll go to 10 years. We can see here, I mean, look at the iron ore prices back then in 2008. Look at that dive. Look at that dive. We're still at about GFC levels, aren't we? We've just shot them down from 120. So you can understand that this is just one example, but, one would have to argue that, well, a reduced iron ore price may affect the profitability of a lot of mines, and it will flow through to the rest of the economy. Just the amount of investment in that state will be affected by that. Not really mentioned in this, isn't. Maybe they'll mention it later. So CoreLogic head of research Tim Lawless said while price growth was the I have a problem with this word every time, culmination of a gradual improvement in market conditions, there were firm signals that nascent recovery would become something more substantial. What are these signals? What are the fundamentals that are driving? This is my question that I keep asking every time I read this type of news, guys. What are the fundamentals? We've got lower interest, cash rate is just insanely low. APRA have eased up on how easy it is to borrow money. So people are jumping in. You've got FOMO in the media, but what are the fundamentals? Are jobs going up? Is unemployment going down? Is new big projects happening around the country? Is there a heightened demand for the resources that Australia is exporting? Aren't those fundamentals? Aren't those the issues that would be driving up a boom? Or is it just going to be more of, foreign investment coming in, which has tanked? Is it going to be wage growth that doesn't exist? This is why I'm skeptical of this. Let me know what you think, guys. Am I the only one seeing this? Am I the only one skeptical of all of these things? Or it's just because I'm reading all this stuff and trying to understand what's going on and putting it all together that maybe I'm going even more grey, guys? The 6 months leading up to November were clearly showing that the trend in falling values was losing steam, Mr. Lawless said. Properties in Perth's inner suburbs have performed the best over the past month. Well, here we go. Mandurah, I mean, look at that. That's just go to Martin North or go to the CEC. I mean, yeah. But here's the chart that we all need to look at when we're reading this. The number of people in arrears on their home loans. Look how high that is in Western Australia and Perth, guys. It's only 1.5%. It's not that high. The delta change from 0.5 to 1.5. That's a huge increase. That's a huge increase. And here's the question. Cash rate's low, okay? What happens if the dollar starts falling down? If the dollar starts, what are we at, 67 cents? Right now I'm just looking over here to see the exact amount. 68 cents, it's gone up. But US, what happens if the dollar tumbles? What happens if demand for our, maybe the Chinese economy is slowing down, demand for our natural resources decrease, so the demand for the Australian dollar also goes down? What will happen then? Will the Reserve Bank start pushing up rates? Will that affect the arrears rate here? Then will we start seeing this growth drop down? So this is the thing. I'm trying to understand how they can make these claims. Because honestly, I'm thinking more and more, a lot of these people in the property game, and this is going to sound very, very arrogant, but you're not dealing with professionals. And by professional, I don't mean someone that's competent and capable. I'm talking about someone that has a duty of care to the community beyond their own self-interest. Now, as an architect, that was rammed into us at university. One thing that really annoyed me was that interior designers, other non-professionals that don't have an act or don't take, doctors take an oath, that they can specify all the furniture in your project and get a commission on it from the supplier. That's perfectly allowed. It's dodgy, but it's allowed. I can't do that. That's a breach against the act. I can't take any kickbacks. Like real estate agents, when they recommend a broker or those type of things, they're getting kickbacks and all these things. I actually had a meeting with clients, and they were asking me, what's your relationship with such and such, the person on the body corporate that invited us in, and I go, I meet him at functions and I had some wines. He goes, oh no, is there any financial relationship? And I go, are you kidding? I can't. It was quite foreign to me. Actually, probably showed my naivety to some parts of the rest of the business world, where people are getting kickbacks everywhere. But that's the thing. When people are presenting this information, what is their financial interest? What is their conflict of interest? What's their interest? What are they selling you? So maybe, that's what we're starting to see. That's why we're getting only news that, well, seems to be very designed to induce FOMO. According to Mr. Lawless, the trend has been underpinned by two key economic drivers, jobs and population growth. Population is really a proxy for housing demand, and we're finally seeing, at least on June numbers, population growth back to the 10-year average, he said. Okay, well, perhaps in Western Australia, population is growing, but we have to look at this chart here. Now, this shows you the percentage breakdown of our population growth to natural increases, births in the nation, and overseas migration. Now, when you're looking at overseas migration, there is a time delay between someone migrating to a nation and becoming a productive member of that civilization. People aren't widgets. And this is something that globalists don't seem to appreciate. And I went to a Harry Dent event, and he was talking all about how people are coming in, it's fine, you want to get these people in the country. And not realizing there's elements of culture shock, there's elements of delayed integration, there's elements of complete lack of integration, where you start getting clusters of different cultures, and then that can cause cultural conflict. And these are things that need to be considered. And no one wants to talk about it in polite company. And all of his, Mr. Dent's, examples are based on having people from very compatible cultural groups immigrating together. And he doesn't seem to understand there's going to be not the same impact. There's going to be a slight delay, and we're seeing this in Melbourne in particular, with what I would call intergenerational culture shock with immigrants coming through recently. I mean, a German moving to an Anglo-Saxon culture or to an American culture or an English culture, there's not going to be that much culture shock. They're the biggest minority in the United States, guys. I've been brought up in a Germanic Austrian household. I'm pretty Australian. Very little difference. Only English beer is not as good as German beer. But then again, I think most Australians would agree with that. Anyway, I'm rambling again. Let's get back to this. So that's the thing with population growth. I know he's just talking about Western Australia in this circumstance, but there's broader issues that need to be considered. And that's not even mentioning the strain that puts on infrastructure, which has never kept up here in Australia. We're in a lot of trouble with regards to our infrastructure, particularly water. So blue chip suburbs are driving the price increase. Data shows the recovery is being led by premium properties in Perth's inner and coastal suburbs. The inner region of Perth includes the western suburbs from Mossman Park to Wembley Downs, and the northern suburbs of Mount Lawley and Mount Hawthorn. Normally, during a market recovery, it is the top end of the marketplace that does move first, the blue chip suburbs, where the inherent scarcity of supply generally drives demand, Mr. Lawless said. If we look at how values are shifting over the past month, it was the top quarter of the market, top quartile, the most expensive 25% of Perth properties, where the values are up nearly 1%. Prices for the lowest quartile, properties in Greater Perth, the least expensive properties overall, were flat in November, while the middle 50% recorded a very small drop of 0.1. So here you go. Overall, Perth is going down. If we look at just the number of properties, not the value, the number of properties that have seen an increase to a decrease. This is the thing where they're saying, property prices are shooting up. If your top 25% go up, their value increases, and then you base it all on value, you can say, oh, look, it's gone up. But on a bare numbers basis, the poorest houses, the one I'd be in, the bottom quartile, they have been flat, where 50%, the biggest chunk in the middle, have actually dropped. So, I mean, we'll draw a little chart here. These guys here are up. These guys here are up. These guys are down. And these guys are flat. Paints a bit of a different picture, doesn't it? And that's a terrible drawing. Why don't do it with the mouse? If we do see this recovery gather pace, I think it will probably be centered in the most expensive suburbs. But then as prices rise, the growth will gradually ripple out to the more affordable areas of the market. The top quartile of the Perth market is clearly the strongest performing over the past month. Well, here you go. This is a good diagram, but it gives you a picture to show how this reporting is all based on just one quartile, one portion of the data, just the upper end of the sector. Curtin University Professor of Economics, Rochelle Ong, cautioned that it was too early to call a house price recovery in Perth, but said there were structural factors that will drive prices up in time, regardless of whether this is just a blip in the trend or whether we are actually seeing an upturn. In my view, that sooner or later we're going to see Perth housing market start to turn. She said, well, yeah, of course you're going to start seeing it turn. But it's good that you're calling out that it's not an upturn now. Perth has now been reclassified again as a regional location for immigration purposes, and that should boost population growth in the next year or so. Well, here you go. This is the thing. This is happening more and more in Australia to attract immigration. So they want to increase our population, use that to drive up the housing sector. But then we'll have more infrastructure issues, and there'll be there'll be a delay before you receive the benefit, depending on the cultural differences with people that come in, and that's just reality, guys. Even if the recovery is consolidated, Mr. Lauder said it was unlikely to be a linear trend. I think as the market moves through the bottom of this very long down phase, we could see some further declines coupled with some modest rises, he said. I don't think the market is going to bounce back exceptionally quickly. So there you go, guys. The Perth market pinning their hopes on population increase, it looks like, and just the top portion of the market is what's driving the increase. So once again, I wouldn't call it a market turnaround. What do you think, guys? Let me know your opinions and your ideas in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video. Thank you all very much for your support. For those of you that want to help the channel grow and help me produce more content, we have a Patreon where you can make a small monthly donation. We also have Amazon and eBay affiliate links where we receive a commission every time you make a purchase. Doesn't cost you a cent. It's great for you, a great way for you to support any creators you know on social media or YouTube. If they don't have one, tell them to get one. It's easy. It really is. And finally, we have PayPal and Ethereum if you want to make a donation like that. Thank you all very much for your support. Take care, guys, and let me know what you think. Do you think this turnaround in the blue chip properties, do you think it'll continue, or are we seeing a bounce? Take care, guys.